ordinances.
Right, so now it comes down to, do you follow God's law or man's law? And so if you arrested me, you would be following man's law in rebellion against God's law. Because God's law never gives you the authority to restrict my use of a megaphone to reach people with the gospel.
Well, unfortunately in Charlotte it does, because it's a city ordinance. It's a council of the law.
But the people who made that law are not above God, right? So God's law is always above man's law, right?
Of course they're not above God.
Okay, so then follow God instead of man.
Well, I do, but at the same time, I have a job to do, and I was sworn to defend the ordinances of the city.
But you shouldn't. But you should not follow. You should not follow an oath to disobey God, because you would be
taking a megaphone away from somebody is not disobeying God.
It is if they're preaching the gospel and doing God's will.
You're not preaching the gospel.
Yeah,
You're preaching abortion.
I'm preaching that. No, the gospel is more than just the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus.
No, that's it.
No, it's not. Because it's also, in the first chapter of Colossians, it says that God is reconciling all things to himself through Jesus, making peace by the blood of his cross. So all things, it says things in heaven or things on earth. So that's everything. So all things are being reconciled to God.
Absolutely.
And so justice needs to be established. The justice system needs to be reconciled to God. That's part of the gospel.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm preaching the gospel. The gospel is good news that God is reconciling all things to himself. This is part of the gospel.
Because of the freedom that you have in this country. Other countries, man, they cut your head off. You know what I mean?
Sure, but I don't have the freedom to use a megaphone here to do that, because you would enforce a tyrannical law that would restrict my use of that when God has not authorized you to do that. God has authorized the government to only inflict damage on image bearers like me when it's appropriate according to his law, when he tells us it's appropriate for you to do that. No, see, God's law tells us when you have the authority to do something to me when I'm doing something. Like if I was, God's law describes certain circumstances.
Of God, carried out to carry out his
right, to carry out his justice, though.
Yes.
A minister of justice.
Yes.
Okay, so justice is only defined by God's law, right? So justice is defined by God's law. When I do something that's not in violation of God's law, you don't have the authority to do anything to me. If you then do something to me when I'm not violating God's law, that at that point you're perverting justice. You're not establishing justice.
It's an ordinance of the city that was written and accepted by the people,
which is in rebellion against God's law, because God's law never authorizes the government to shut down megaphone use when the word of God is being preached.
You're doing a pretty good job with just your voice.
Sure. But I'm encouraging you to defy tyrannical laws that are in rebellion against God and to establish real justice by following the law of God.
Are you going to pay my paycheck every Friday?
No, okay. No, but maybe. It seems like you shouldn't keep doing this job if it involves sinning against God by perverting justice.
It's not perverting justice. It's not sinning against God.
Well, it is, because if I preached with the megaphone and you arrest me, you would be damaging an image bearer of God without authorization from God. That would be sin. That would be sin.
I think you're out of context.
No, because you'd be restraining me without authorization from God. You'd take me to jail, or you'd make me pay a fine. That would be damage to me, an image bearer of God, without authorization from God.
But aren't you supposed to go along with authority? And be not in rebellion?
No. Only when the authority is in line with God are we required to follow the authority.
It's a megaphone. You show me a verse in the Bible that says, "Don't take away my megaphone." Show me.
Show me a verse in the Bible that gives you authority to shut down my megaphone.
I don't have to, because I have law.
But the law doesn't supersede God's law. And if God's law doesn't say I can't use the megaphone, then I can use the megaphone. Everything that God's law...
You're taking it out of context.
No, I'm not. Because if God's law doesn't prohibit me from doing something, I can do it.
Okay.
Because God would have told me whether or not I can do it.
If you're that passionate about it, okay. I understand. But if you do it here, someone, maybe not me, but someone will take it away and choose citation. That's the difference. So I only came out here because I have nothing to do with the church. I have to do with the community, and the community was calling because of the noise. So that's my part of it. I just wanted to find out how long you're going to be here. And then we started having a conversation, a pretty good conversation.
Okay.
You know. So I don't.
Do you do anything about the fact that babies are mass murdered in this area?
Yes.
What are you doing?
Love Life? Heard of Love Life?
Yeah.
Okay.
What are you doing with them?
My son works for them.
Okay. What are you doing with them?
What am I doing with them? I'm supporting my son so he can go out and do what you're doing.
Okay.
That's what he does. And he's been arrested for it as well.
Okay.
For a megaphone. So I know.
Hopefully not by you.
Not by me. Not by me. By someone else. And I told him, when it comes down to that, you need to walk away. Because I don't want you to have a criminal charge, and I don't want you to have a criminal record for doing what you do. And God doesn't either. He doesn't want that. He doesn't want that. Will the charge go away? Yeah, absolutely. Will all this go away? Yeah, absolutely. Someday.
And you can do your part in fighting against the genocide by not enforcing unjust laws that keep people from using means to save babies,
So
like using a megaphone.
All you would have to do would be to go get a permit for amplified sound, and that would be, and then you're good to go.
I could do that.
That's all it
But
is.
that's also tyrannical to require me to get a permit.
No, I understand, but that's the step that you have to take to get to or the point that you want to be with the megaphone.
Do you understand why we're using the megaphone?
No.
So to reach as many as we can.
It's a megaphone. No,
I think I have conversations like this, but like when there's thousands of people walking in there and Matthew's using the megaphone, it's reaching all those guys.
Well,
because
they're hearing it, but are you reaching them, or are they just hearing it?
If they're being convicted of their sin, you know.
Well, the megaphone allows you to speak with a normal voice instead of yelling. So I seem like you can come across as kind of crazy when you're yelling, but when you're not yelling, you can talk normally, and they take you more seriously.
You guys met Sam uptown?
Sam who?
Jesus Saves. Sam, the big black guy that yells Jesus Saves all the time?
Oh, I haven't met him.
He's uptown.
Okay.
They wanted, not me specifically, but someone to arrest him, but all it was his voice. Jesus Saves, and people were getting upset because of that.
Yeah.
It's the gospel. The gospel comes in conflict.
But that's